In accordance with Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 18, as well as the Governor's August 23rd and December 8th, 2020 revised guidance prohibiting assemblance of more than 25 people, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. In-person attendance by members of the public is prohibited, but all effort will be made to permit public attendance of this meeting via remote access by internet, telephone, and via public broadcast of the meeting by MATV, now known as Urban Media Arts, or on public access television channels. Public access will also be provided by posting draft minutes and/or transcript recording a record of the meeting on the City of Malden website at cityofmalden.org as soon as practicable after the meeting. So you may be wondering, how is it that we met last month in person and tonight we're meeting via Zoom? And the reason is there was another meeting that was pre-arranged prior to ours downstairs in the council chamber. So that's why we are back here together on Zoom tonight. We will be back in our hybrid model, meaning we will be in person and we will take testimony via Zoom at our next meeting, which will be Monday, October 4th at 6 p.m. So this evening, what we will do, as we always do, is make sure at the outset to pledge allegiance to our flag. We will then have a moment of silence for all those who have served our country. We will then call the roll to ensure that we have a quorum sufficient to allow us to meet tonight. We will then introduce our interpreters, and then we will get into this evening's agenda, which consists of approval of minutes, public comment. We will hear from our superintendent, and then we will entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of approving our minutes from August 30th, 2021, and to conduct strategy sessions as it pertains to units A, B, and C, as well as SEIU Local 888 Clerical Unit. And then, depending on what happens there, we will come back out. We may or may not act on what happened in executive session. If we don't, we will then simply move adjournment. So if there are no questions, I would ask everyone to please rise and salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America and
and
to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty
and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of all those who have fought for our country and continue to do so today. Thank you. We will now have our clerk call the roll.
Mayor Christensen?
Here.
Mr. Drummy?
Here.
Mr. Froyo?
Yeah.
Mr. Gray?
Here.
Mr. Ivina?
here.
Ms. Luau?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Ms. Spadafora?
Here.
Mr. Baldi?
Here.
Superintendent Noriega Murphy?
Here.
All right, so we do have a quorum sufficient to allow us to come together this evening. Next, we will hear from someone who we should actually just make a member of the school committee, and that's Danielle Najmi of Rosetta Languages to introduce our interpreters.
Thank you, Mayor Gary. Good evening, everyone. I'm Danielle. I'm here with the team of interpreters from Rosetta Languages. Luke and Sharon, our ASL interpreters, are already interpreting live. The rest of us will go ahead and introduce ourselves in each of the 7 other languages and give instructions to get on the language channels. I will start with Arabic. مساء الخير، السلام عليكم. أنا اسمي دانيال مع روزيتا لانجويجز. عندما الترجمة اليوم، إذا أردتم الاستماع إلى الترجمة باللغة العربية فاضغط على رمز الكرة الأرضية الذي سيظهر على الشاشة بعد قليل في أسفل الشاشة واختر اللغة العربية أو Arabic. إذا كنت على هاتف محمول فعليك أن تضغط على 3 نقط للمزيد من الخيارات، ثم اضغط على ترجمة اللغات، ثم اللغة العربية أو Arabic، وثم تم أو done. شكرا جزيلا. I will now pass it over to Spanish.
Buenas noches a todos y bienvenidos. Esta noche tenemos servicios de interpretación en español y cuando se enciende la función simplemente ubícase al fondo de su pantalla. Ahí verás el globito. Hacer clic en el globo y escoge Spanish. Si se está conectando tras un móvil, simplemente empuje los 3 puntitos y de allá escoge Spanish y pues done, que significa terminado. Muchas gracias. Ahora a portugués.
Boa noite, gente. Então, a gente está oferecendo interpretação em vários idiomas. Eu vou estar interpretando em português. Se é o caso que você precisa de interpretação em português, dentro de pouco tempo a gente vai ligar a interpretação. Daí, se tiver no computador, tu vai clicar no globinho que vai aparecer abaixo à direita. Se tiver no celular, vai ter que clicar nos 3 pontinhos e depois escolher interpretação. Daí, de qualquer jeito, vai escolher português, certo? Muito obrigado. E agora, now we have Haitian Creole.
Nikita, you are on mute.
Ok, bonsoir tout le monde qui a entendu nous. Mon nom c'est Nikita Lamont, avec l'équipe Rosetta Languages là, nous c'est 7 personnes qui ont interprété à soya. Donc ça, on va prendre un petit globe en bas, les signaux sont finis pour interpréter. On va prendre un petit globe, on va peser le globe blanc, les fins on va peser Haitian Creole. Pour ça, il va que Haitian Creole. Sur la mobile, on va prendre 3 petits points. La mobile là, on va peser 3 petits points, on va peser Haitian Creole, Creole haïtien, les fini, on va marquer done. Done veut dire fini. Terminé, il est fini. Donc c'est comme ça, on a branché pour interpréter en créole. Merci. Okay, now I'm going to pass it to Vietnamese.
Xin chào, tôi tên là Duyên, thông dịch người Việt Nam. Nếu quý vị cần thông dịch tiếng Việt, xin vui lòng bấm vào quả cầu và chọn vào ngôn ngữ tiếng Việt. Nếu quý vị kết nối bằng điện thoại di động, xin bấm vào 3 dấu chấm và chọn tiếng Việt. Xin cảm ơn ạ. Now I will pass to Mandarin. Thank you.
Thank you. 大家好，我叫 Terry， 我是你们的国语翻译。待会呢，你在屏幕下方就会看到一个地球的图标，选择地球的图标，再选择 Mandarin， 你就可以听到国语的频道了。如果您是选择手机或者是平板电脑上的话呢，可以选择屏幕下方的3个点，然后再选择语言的选项，也可以进入到国语的频道。好，謝謝大家。I'll pass it to Cantonese, please.
Thank you, Terry. 大家好，我係 Anna， 我哋嘅廣東話翻譯頻道翻譯員。今日有同步嘅翻譯，我哋嚟自 Rosetta Language， 有多種語言嘅翻譯。而家你見到個地球儀嘅時候咧，請你撳落去就會見到個圖標。咁你揀 Cantonese， 咁你就會成功進入咗廣東話翻譯頻道噶啦。用手機嘅話咧，撳開3個點，咁你都會成功進入咗廣東話翻譯頻道噶啦。多謝大家，一陣間見。Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And with that, all interpreters, unmute yourselves, make sure that your microphones and everything is on. And Adam, you can go ahead and activate the interpreter function. Thank you.
All right, and interpretation channel should be. All right.
Okay, thank you. And again, we would just ask everyone to speak slowly to allow our interpreters to get the message across at home. Item number 1, approval of minutes, regular session minutes of August 30th, 2021. Motion by Mr. Iavino, seconded by Ms. Luong. Any questions, queries, qualms about those? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it, that carries unanimously. Now the special session minutes of September 8th, 2021.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Long. Any questions on those minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it, that carries unanimously. We're now down to item number 2, public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the community to address the school committee. We only ask that you state your name and address for the record, and please keep your remarks to just a couple of minutes. So with that being said, we will now go over to Mr. Weldy to help us administer public comment.
All right. So for anybody who'd like to participate, if you are on Zoom, just use the raise hand feature on Zoom. Or if you are calling in by phone, dial *9. You can also type your name and address into the chat box in order to get yourself in the queue. Our first person up was Bonnie Littlejohn. It looks like Bonnie has dropped off, so we'll come back to Bonnie when she gets there. Next one up is Amanda Maffio, and there are 2 of you here, so I'm going to try one and see if it works.
All right.
Oh, did it work?
All right, I think I'm working. Can you hear me, Adam?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. I was having internet issues. I want to thank you for listening to me. I'm Amanda Maffio, 81 Waite Street, Malden. I don't know why I just said Malden. And I am a resident as well as an educator here in Malden. And I just wanted to thank a few of the school committee members, and they have been so amazing and active. I'm thinking of Adam, and I am thinking of Jen, who have always been vocal and who I've always been able to rely on. And I'm speaking as a teacher at the Salemwood School, but we are also very underrepresented by not having someone on our side for the school committee. So I am hoping that other school committee members who are staying on board this year will also share the load. And I'm not talking about the ones that are always doing something, but more so towards the school committee members here that do not have a school in their ward at all. And I am hoping that this year you feel challenged and compelled to get on board and to help our students at the Salemwood, because it's not just a few of them that should be so vocal that we need to rely on just a few of the members to be go-to people, but rather it should be the entire school committee that we feel we can always go to for all issues. And I want to thank this past, for example, Mayor Christensen, you represented the city and the school committee at our slush party, and I really thank that. And I'm hoping that in the future I can reach out to more school committee members to come and to help represent Salemwood. I know we have many activities we want for the school. And this is really a call, again, not to the few people that are doing the majority of the job, but for those that truly aren't doing a lot. And I'm not trying to place blame or make anyone feel bad, but Salemwood represents the entire city with the SEI students and where students live in all corners of Malden. And we need a school committee member to step up and represent us. So I'm hoping someone feels that call who is staying on the school committee to do that. So thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you.
Right. Let's see. I don't see Bonnie. Next up is Birgit Pierrette.
We're going to change ASL interpreters as well. Sorry, that was an error.
Birgit, did it work?
I do not wish to speak, Adam.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's put
That
your
was an error.
All right. So let's just put your hand down and we'll see you later. Okay. So next up we have Mustafa.
Hello everyone. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak up. And I want to start by thanking Mr. Gray, which is the Ward 6 school committee member, Gray Joseph, and he was the one who took my call after I had an issue. I'm going to be talking about an issue here with the Parent Information Center. So thank you, Joseph, for taking my call and for explaining to me the process and for actually giving me the information about this committee meeting. So I want to speak up, as I mentioned, about issue with the Parent Information Center. I have a son 5 years old, and he's supposed to be in kindergarten starting last week. So I applied for him back in May, and the physical exam was missing, and I was informed that the physical exam was missing by the center. But I never knew that it's contingent on him going to school. So when the time of school came in September last week, I took my kids and they refused to get him in, saying that he doesn't have a physical. So I took off some time from work, and I went to the hospital twice to get the physical. You know, you have to do 2 visits. The first visit, you do the shot, and the second visit, you check with the doctor and stuff like that. Anyway, so I had to go twice to the hospital, taking time off from my work. And I end up having the physical by Friday. Friday, it was too late. By the time I finished, it was too late to contact whether school or the center. So this morning I went to the school, and then they still refused my kid. They say, no, you have to go to the center, to the parent center. Okay, I drove this morning. I drove again to the center. When I drove the center, there is always lineup. I heard about that. There is always people lining up outside of the center. If you drive by in the morning, there is always lineup. The service was not that great. And when my turn came, they just asked me to put the paper in an envelope and drop it in a box. I was expecting to give me, because this is a kid of 5 years and he was excited. Last week, he was excited to go to school. This week, he was excited to, and they refused. They pushed him back. Again, this week, he was excited to go. So all I was served with is an envelope and a paper. I found this very, very poor service to the clients and to the customer and to the residents of Malden. And I can see the frustration in the face of a lot of people this morning in the Parent Information Center. I didn't like the service at all. The customer service was very poor. And one important thing is, regardless of the paperwork, I think, my opinion, we need to admit the kids, especially a 5 years old kid, for the kindergarten. We need to admit them, then we address the paperwork. So thank you again for your time. And hopefully you get some of my comments will be taken in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who else, Mr. Walday?
All right, next up, Eden Garhart-Smith.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Eden Garhart-Smith. I live at 16 Corey Road in Malden. I just wanted to say, if we could get any information about like band for Linden. I know it sounds really lame compared to the gentleman that just went and trying to get his kid into school. I understand that it might not be a priority, but will there be band in the future at Linden, like next year, this year? I mean, it was kind of said that they're going to try to incorporate band or musical instruments into music this year, but how's that going to work? And I think I'm frustrated too on just the lack of communication. I appreciate that Mr. Garcia was very straightforward and said, the band teacher went to the Forestdale. I appreciate that. I'm sure it might be because of numbers. Maybe there are more kids who participate in band at the Forestdale and like with COVID, but it would really just be nice to get some communication on why this decision was made, what happened, what's going to happen in the future. I think same for, I was going to say something else and now I forgot. But same for after school. It's like, okay, there's no after school at Linden. And it's been like this since the summer, as far as I know, and superintendent's going to say her email and her phone number. But at what point do you say this isn't working and we really need to have after school at Linden and at all our schools? I have no idea what schools have after school. I know some do and some don't, as far as I know. But at what point do you say we need to offer more money or make it a full-time job and include it as a sub or do something more than just saying, I'm sorry, and here's my email and my number. If you know anybody, call me. I feel like you need goals. Okay, we'll wait till October and we'll do X, and then November we'll do Y, and we'll try to get something set up by January. I know it's really hard. I know there's COVID. I know you're working very hard. I know the information center and getting families in has been, I'm sure, extremely difficult considering the past year. But just, I would appreciate some more communication on after school and band, and also COVID. And I know the nurse, Patty, I'm not going to say her name right, Tremedosi is there. I'm sorry for mispronouncing it. And I'm sure we'll get information on that. But I've been testing my kids, before school started, and they have another test Friday because it's not happening in the schools. And I know there's other stuff going on, like even schools that had testing don't have the test kits yet, from what I've read online. But when we last heard, it was we were still deciding what test we were going to do. Hopefully that's been determined, but I just feel frustrated and I'm disappointed. But if you can give communication at some point in the future, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have Bonnie Littlejohn. Did it work, Bonnie? Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Yep.
Okay. I'm having major technical difficulties at my house tonight. I had to call in on the phone. So my name is Bonnie Littlejohn. I'm on Emerald Street in Malden. Over the weekend, I emailed a few city officials about a safety issue. I realize that this issue may be more of a city and traffic issue, but I would like to make sure I bring attention to it with you too, since it affects our school, children, families, and staff. I'm very concerned about the crossing guard situation on the corner of Elm and Hawthorne Streets, and also at the corner of Highland Ave and Elm Street during the BB school drop-off and pickup. I've been a parent at BB for over 11 years and definitely know the craziness, for lack of a better word, of the parking and traffic there and the ignorance of drivers. I am shocked that I've not seen crossing guards on these two corners every day. I understand if there is a shortage of crossing guards, but we are talking about the safety of our children, families, and staff who park in this area and need to cross, plus any other community members who are walking in this area during these times of the day. I have seen children walking in the middle of the street, not in the crosswalk, taking the long route to the sidewalk with cars driving behind them. All need to be directed safely. There must be something that can be done. I speak from my experience at BB. I cannot speak about the situations at the other schools, but can only hope that their crossing guard situation is intact. It may be something to check though. On top of all of this, the transportation for the special education students drops off and picks up these students pretty much where the crosswalk is at the corner of Elm and Hawthorne Street. I cannot tell you how many times that the crossing guard has directed people away from the buses as the buses try to pull in and reverse out of their parking area, which is next to the crosswalk. So they are backing up into the crosswalk and then pulling away, mostly because of the people who double park, so the buses have to reverse into the crosswalk. All of this is another safety concern. No crossing guard equals no safety being directed. This morning, when my daughter and I walked up to the school in this area, there was a truck making a food delivery parked in the crosswalk with no crossing guard on duty. I respectfully ask that there be some dialogue from the school committee and school department with the city and traffic department to devise some solution to the lack of crossing guards at these busy corners. I am very worried about the safety of everyone there and do not want to wait until something bad happens before this situation is resolved. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for any action and dialogue that may happen. And also, thank you for all the work you do for the school throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Next up, I see in chat, Jason Giacopo.
Hello?
Jason?
Oh,
it worked.
There. So I did put my question in the chat, but I'll do it here as well. So thank you for answering my question. Sorry for the 7-year-old in the background. So we're just curious as to any updates and information on the pool testing for Linden and other schools. We haven't heard anything. We were told on the last meeting, I believe, that that we were selecting through a couple different options or companies. And so we're just curious as to where we stand on that and if it's going to be done. And we're actually kind of surprised that it hasn't been started already. So we're just, we're looking to see if there's any insight on that. And that's our question. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Great. And just as a reminder, you just need to use the raise hand feature or dial *9, *7, or *9 on the telephone. As of right now, it looks like we have nobody else in the queue for public comment.
Okay, we're going to close that portion of the meeting, and we will now go to our superintendent for her report.
Good evening, families. And before I start my report, I just have to say thank you for your patience about the Parent Information Center. It has not been easy for you. We understand that. Absolutely, yes, we have spent hours in there, but we are learning about the systems that we need to put in place, how we have to build more of the technology to keep a data tracker to create dashboards. So I understand your frustration and thank you for coming back again. And I just want to say, there are no words to say, your frustration. I just have to say, I'm sorry about that. And we hope that this is the last time this is going to happen, as we are going to build systems, put a structure in there, and also to be able to do pre-registrations. So we don't have a bulk of applications coming at the same time. But once again, I just want to say thank you for your patience. And I know you have been waiting in long lines and you keep still smiling, and we want every single child in school. So I just want to say that before I start with my report. I hear you loud and clear. And once again, the promise is that next year, this time, it's not going to be like that at all. With the report, we are going to start with Mr. Leonardo Lovino, who is a member of the school committee from Ward 4 to present the data. You are mute, so you have to actually unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. I'd like to report that as of the 9th of September, our enrollment has increased to 5,939 students. That is an increase of 169 students since the 26th of August. The enrollment numbers are going to be fluid, and they'll probably change day to day, week to week, and certainly we want to get them up and ready and in exact form for the October 1st report to the State Department of Education, Elementary and Secondary Education. In looking at a 3-year trend, if you look at a 3-year trend from 2018, 2019 to, the 2020-21 school year, actually from 18 to 19, there was an increase of 17 students. And then, of course, the pandemic year, school year 2020 to 2021, we had a drop off of 361 students. That year has to really be viewed as an outlier because of the pandemic. It was a horrible situation for students, for teachers, for parents, for school administrators. So our focus will be on administering and bringing in to the K-12, the kindergarten to grade 12, as many of the youngsters as are whose parents register them for school. Looking at the current numbers, currently there were, as of Thursday, 173 applicants that were pending. Since that time, as of today, there are only 57 that are pending. That means that the parent information has processed 116, and they've been working very diligently, working as hard as they can. There are 207 applicants that are in the review process. So once those numbers are solidified, our enrollment number this time next month would be considerably higher. Thank you.
Any questions? Hearing none, back to you, Superintendent.
Thank you. So we do have a presentation for you, but while we look for it, I'm going just to go back to a question that was asked last meeting about enrollment data to track for multiple years. So one of the things that we noticed is that in the year 2018-2019, we had an enrollment of 6,464 students. Very similar enrollment in year 19 and 20. Last year, in year 2020-2021, we have 6,120. So there has been attrition with our students. And Adam, if you want to make me a co-host, I can share this screen.
Actually, you can share. I'm having trouble finding.
Okay, no problem, because yeah, I don't want to just speak numbers, and no, I cannot share. So sorry, can't share. So all right, let's see if one of my members can share this. And right, okay. So one of the things that we are looking at is the trends and patterns of enrollment. I'm trying to make sure that we're going to monitor them very closely.
Superintendent, are you speaking off the presentation?
Yes, and I wish I can.
Let's try and get it up, because I
Yeah,
want to give
okay.
the public an opportunity to see it. So can you work on that?
Yep, give me 60 seconds.
Yes, it's not allowing me. I don't.
It says all panelists have the ability to, I'm not going to second guess technology.
No problem.
It controls us. Okay,
maybe you share it.
That's what I'm working on now. The superintendent just shared it, and I'm working on getting it up. Okay, can we see it on screen?
Yep.
Yes.
And
if you don't mind to go to slide number 6.
While we're waiting, we will announce breaking news. Malden High School Athletic Director just posted that the girls volleyball team beat Everett 3-0. So congratulations to them.
Yay.
all right, it has. Oh. Give us one more shot. We had just figured out how to do this in council chambers, so it would make sense that Zoom stops.
You did it, yay! All right, so if you go to slide number 6. would be great. Thank you.
There
we go. That's the one.
So this is the trend that we see on the district enrollment data, which we are going to start monitoring in a weekly basis. And we can see that there has been attrition with students. Last year, we lost several students, 6,120 when we closed the year. And right now, as Mr. Levino was saying, we have 5,939 pending for more students to start school tomorrow. Next, please. Next slide. When we look at the historical data based on graduation, so this applies only to high school. The state actually sees graduation in two different stages. 4-year graduation in a cohort, that means students who started in the high school in 9th grade and continue being in the high school for the last 4 years and were able to successfully graduate from the school. When we look at the adjusted 4-year graduation, means any student who enter the school at any other grade level, 11th graders, 10th graders. So we see the graduation from 17 to year 2017, 2018, 80% for the year 4 years, 84.8 for the adjusted. Of course, last year was challenging, and we had the year 2019, 2020, we have a 78.1, but the adjusted was high as 84%. As at this moment, we do not have the graduation for this year because it's embargo, so I cannot share with the public yet. We currently have 445 seniors, and hopefully we are going to get more. Next slide, please. We are also looking at.
Oh, did I go too far? Again?
Yes, we're also looking at the dropout data. And this year, instead of presenting to you just the 12th graders, we decided to go with the span grade of 9th grade to 12th. In the year 2017, 2018, as you can see, that we had a total dropout of 3.4. You can see in year 18 and 19, 3.2. Last year was 3.4. One thing that we noticed is that the highest dropout happens in 10th grade. So that is something that we are already working on that, trying to find out what is the trend, what is that data telling us. We don't want any dropouts, but we want to see the spectrum of what's going on with our students as our enrollment is going down. Right now, Erin Craven and her team are looking at the students who this year separated from the school, trying to find out where they are and trying to re-enroll them and support them getting the high school diploma. But going back here, we see that in 10th grade is where we have an issue. We are also going to start looking for the first time the trends of 8th graders to see how many of 8th graders actually continue with us to go to high school, or how many of them depart from the Malden Public Schools. At this moment, I cannot share the data for this current year. All right, yeah, next. Thank you. Our first week of school was amazing. We, as of today, we had 92.3% of attendance, which is a very, very high, and we are very happy about that. I'm going to talk about my entry plan timeline as it was requested last time. We already look at the historical 3-year district and school data in enrollment, graduation, and dropout. We are going to go over our core values, our professional development with teachers. You're going to have a mini version of the visual organizational chart. And we are going to talk about the welcome center challenges and the improvement plan. As you can see, we have more things in there, but going back to the pick, so let me break a little bit the order. We are doing a deep analysis of our existing systems, a lot of structures, policies that are in place, and thanks to the support of the policy committee from school committee, we have been able to start looking at how we can improve these practices and in order to enroll the students a little faster, and also the resources that we need to deploy in there. So I just want to say thank you to the parents of the patients and also the workers at the PIC and Larissa for helping leading that work. Can we go next slide? Thank you. So this is the superintendent's timeline, and this is from my program, the induction program. Last time I presented my entry plan. I will continue from September to February. I will continue collecting data, meeting with stakeholders, focus group. But that doesn't mean I'm not working, doing anything in between. We are doing things, we are changing things, we are revamping things, but I'm also, there's a protocol that we follow, but there's a lot of things that we are working on, and as we want to improve the services, family members, I understand about the customer service. So that's something that we have been working on, and we will continue working on, because you are our priority. You are our clients, and you are the ones that make this system work. From March to April, we continue looking at data. I will look at court trends, and I'm going to start writing my findings from the report. In May, I have to say 2022, sorry, that was a typo. I will present the findings in public. In June and July, we are going to present the big picture improvement plan, share the findings. I will continue meeting with focus group and work on the strategic plan for 3 to 5 years. In August, we're going to start implementing the plan for 3 to 5 years with goals, targets, and how to deliver it. And I know that a lot of people work in a previous strategic plan. We have been trying to locate all those documents because I don't want to replicate things that were done in the past. So if I call you back to be part of the focus group, and if you have any information, that would be great. But I want to make sure that I acknowledge that. So that is the timeline that I have. Our core values, and this is from the work that was done with a company 2 years ago. And these are the core values that they presented to me as something, as many parents, stakeholders created them: equity, integrity, resilience, and respect. And totally agree with them. So it will be something that we will revise and later on come back with the entire set of the findings. And as a strategic plan, we will present it to school committee for the approval. But I just have to acknowledge the work that many people did in order to come to the core values. Next. I had the opportunity to meet with all the teachers after the mayor and I went in this amazing food truck, and thank God we made it. I think I kissed the floor when we arrived, like, oh my God, we made it. But I had the opportunity the following day to engage with faculty and staff. Sadly, we had to do it via Zoom to just go over my instructional expectations. I'm an instructional leader, and this is what I would like to see in every single classroom to make sure that there's evidence of planning and that the students know what is going to happen in class as well as parents. Next, yes. Yep. I also had the opportunity to make sure that I went over the expectations that we have for zero tolerance for racist and hurtful microaggressions. Malden is a beautiful place. I love it. And we have been able to, and I say we, the entire team, to enjoy going to schools. Everybody's so nice, very pleasant. But we want to make sure that that will continue. And that is the teachers who are amazing, doing all the work in terms of setting classroom norms with students, creating a safe, caring, and respectful classroom environment. Respect is the #1 rule for me. And I'm sure that teachers also embrace that. And we just want to make sure that when we hear something that is not right, that we are going to address it right away and not let it go. We want to make sure that we create culturally sensitive community and that we react to things, that we will be able to have honest conversations with students or with other adults when hurtful comments or microaggressions happen, that we don't ignore them. We address them in a respectful manner, in a setting that is convenient for us to have conversations and being able to learn about that together. I do want to make sure that we're going to protect all our students' civil rights and human rights. It is critical for us to protect all our students. We have to educate and protect our youth. So this is actually one expectation that I have also for not only educators in the classrooms, but also for the principals and anybody who has any contact with students, because we have to make sure that we create environments where students feel safe and are able to learn, and also environments where teachers feel comfortable and able to teach. Thank you. This is our mini visual organizational chart. Very hard to get pictures in there, but this is it's going to be public, so you can see what each of the assistant superintendents and also directors supervise. Later on, I can give you the entire branch, but we're still working on the entire branch. I know that some people are more used to the branches with the lines and the boxes, but I thought this was a good way to see, so you can see our faces, and you see us on the street or in the schools, you can just say hello. So we have Emily Peña, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. She supervises directly supervision to Beebe, Forestdale, and Selenwood. And you can see the other things that she also engages on. Larissa Dorothy, the Assistant Superintendent for Diversity, Equity, and Engagement. And she provides direct supervision to Fairway, Linden, and Malden High School. Next, please. Tonyrtz, Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations. She supervises the payroll, account payables, and food services, custodian facilities, and after-school programs. Then we have Pamela McDonald, Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, Special Education, and 504s. She also provides direct supervision to the Early Learning Center. And of course, Shirley Dorai, who is our Executive Assistant to Superintendent and School Committee Clerk. We have directors, Douglas Diaz, who is a K-12 STEM Director and Math Coach, and supervises the Math Coach, Natalia Bremen, Director of Instruction Technology, Greg Hurley, Director of Humanities, ELA, and Social Studies and History, and lead coaches. Jennifer Mckay, she is the Director of K-12 and Title III for English learners. She supervises some of the coaches. Victoria Mulcair, the Title I Director and in charge of literacy. She also supervises different coaches and family engagement coordinators. And very soon, Diane Brooks is going to join us as the K-12 World Languages and Fine Arts Director. Then we have our amazing, yes, Patty Tramondosi, our Director of Nursing. And you would find out that we're still waiting for some directions from Desi, so please bear with us. Erin Craven, Director of School Counseling, Testing and Academic, and Charlie Punefri, Director of Athletics, Health and Wellness, and supervises some of the coaches. With that, you're going to hear from each of them in a very short period of time. So right now, actually, Larissa, if you're ready.
I am. Thank you very much, Dr. Noriega Murphy, and good evening to school committee members and caregivers. So as Mr. Iovino earlier said, these numbers here on this slide are from last Thursday. So the members of the Welcome Center team have been really getting through as many applications as possible. There are 57 that are currently in the queue as of this afternoon. However, I anticipate that those are being worked on as we are holding this meeting. And when I come in tomorrow morning, I'm sure I will see that ready to go for our those 57 families. And we have 276 right now that are pending. That's up from the 173 that you see on the slide. That pending means that we are awaiting some pieces of information, whether that is proof of address or birth certificates or other pieces of information that we are required to have in hand and have reviewed in order to enroll students. So I've had a busy couple of weeks. I'm looking forward to really getting our family liaisons in schools. They've been helping out at the family engagement work to be able to really support getting those applications through, as well as helping with the linguistic components of that work. That increased support has been really helpful. As Dr. Noriega Murphy has mentioned, we have upped the amount of staffing in the Welcome Center in order to try to, as much as possible, get students into school as soon as possible. And I've also been working on supporting Assistant Superintendent Pena with the equity-focused goals that are in the Title II grant. I'm sure you're going to be happy to hear that I am right now in the process of meeting multiple vendors that will be able to have a fully online enrollment system where families and caregivers, I'm going to slow down, families and caregivers will be able to have a platform where they log in, see where their documents are, upload their documents, and be able to see exactly where they are in the process of the review of the application. So they will no longer need to call, email, come in. They'll be able to go right on their phone and see where the application is. We'll be able to email through that system. And this will also help us to be able to make sure that it's a much smoother and efficient and effective process, because all the information will already be in the data system and it'll be a much quicker step for us to enroll students. The other thing that I'm working on right now is the teacher diversification grant with Mr. Hurley, who is our K-12 humanities director. And we are working on a proposal that's going to hopefully boost our numbers so that our teaching staff can have a pathway from para to teacher. And at the same time, we're going to be able to support to make sure that our staffing is increasingly looking at the diversity of our students so that we are having equal representation in our staffing as we do in our enrollment. My next steps are that I'm working with school leaders to build a differentiated professional development opportunities to engage in cultural proficiency work based on Soretta Hammond's culturally responsive teaching in the brain. This year, that will be optional for as many staff that would like to be involved in that as possible. And we're going to have those workshops announced in October. We're also looking at pre-enrollment as soon as Aspen is configured. And something I'm hoping that we can change the policy on very quickly will be our enrollment for kindergarten for our ELC families so that it's partial re-enrollment, because there's a very small component that is different between ELC enrollment and kindergarten enrollment. But the current process is that it's a brand new enrollment, which we believe can be made a lot more smoother through a fully online process.
Thank you, Larissa. And now we're going to hear from Emily Spena.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Superintendent, school committee members. Here are a couple updates from CIA, Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. So the directors have been busy analyzing data in order to set 3-year goals and yearly targets for literacy and numeracy. We have also created a comprehensive district assessment calendar with testing windows for both literacy using iReady and Dibbles, and for numeracy using iExcel. And the fall baseline data will be used to modify, if needed, our annual targets that have already been set. We've scheduled training for the Eureka math curriculum, so all our new educators will be receiving training on how to implement that, as well as some of our educators that missed the training last year. With the Sposato graduate program, we had 2 of the 3 paraprofessionals that were eager to enroll this year apply and were accepted. The 3rd paraprofessional opted to wait a year because she is filling a long-term sub position right now. And then we are working with the Donovan Group to create a school climate and culture survey. We're going to administer one in the fall and another one in the spring, and use the data to monitor growth in the areas and the categories for school climate and culture. The ESSA grant, so the Title 1, 2, 3, and 4 has been completed and submitted. And we are working now on ESSER 3 grant, which is going to be due in 3 weeks. For new information, we are working to secure a vendor who could help us provide substitutes. This is also amidst a national substitute shortage, which we are very well aware of. And then we also are moving ahead with overwhelming support from the middle school teachers with the math pilot program. The 2 curriculums that are being piloted are Desmos and Open Up. And we are also exploring tutoring partnerships to support COVID learning gaps. We've already met with Varsity Tutors, and we have a couple of other vendors that we also would like to meet with. In terms of next steps, we are planning professional development for all our district paraprofessionals on the first early release day, which is October 8th. And that PD will continue on all of the early release dates as requested by all of our school leaders. And then lastly, the new educator and mentor induction program. We had our first session on the 8th, and our next monthly meeting will be on October 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are going to hear now from Pamela McDonald, Assistant Superintendent of Student Services.
Hi, how are you? So we are finally done. Well, not done, but we finally have our final report for tiered focus monitoring. We got 3 partially implemented or 3 areas of improvement. SE12, which is the frequency of reevaluation. The issue, according to DESE, is that a review of our records showed that not all of the reevaluations were conducted within that 3-year time frame. So we're working on that. Parental consent was the other area. The review of the records and the all of the interviews that DESE did showed that the consent of the parent was not always returned in a timely manner, and we were not aggressive enough in getting parental consent back for reevaluations and signed IEPs. So we're working on that. And the last one, SE39, was procedures that we have in place to provide. We have to give part of our IDA grant. We have to share an equitable share with the students that are privately placed, as well as homeschool students. So we are also working on that area. The entire report is online. And you can see it. It's posted on DESE's website as well as the Malden Public Schools Student Services website. So you can find it either place. If you can't find it, you can reach out and I'm happy to share it. And any questions, we have already been working on rewriting our procedures. We had trainings last week with our program managers, our team chairs, and our psychologists in order to make improvements in these 3 areas. As far as next steps, I have been working with our new literacy director, Mrs. Mulkern, and we're currently using our iDibbles and our iReady screenings for Dibbles. For the dyslexia screening that started last week, and we've decided to stay with that for the time being. It is a screening that is approved by DESE. So we're happy to use those too. And they do check off the boxes that DESE wants for the dyslexia screening. The dyslexia screening, I think, is a great addition to the schools that DESE has asked us to do, because unfortunately special ed is a very reactive service. So this is a very proactive look at kids that might be struggling at a very young age to get an intervention as early as possible. So, you know, it's important that we look at this dyslexia screening in the context of a bigger sort of progress monitoring MTSS system, which I think that our new Title I director is doing a great job at. And we've been talking a lot about how we could offer new Tier 2 offerings for reading support for students to really have a more robust approach to students that are struggling in reading. So her and I have been working on that. The ELC, I'm happy to report, we have a dedicated adaptive PE teacher for them this year, as well as a music and an art teacher. So we're very excited that they're going to have specials and the opportunity to have a well-rounded program there. So that's exciting. The next steps is Mrs. Melkirkin and I always say her name wrong, are working on some new literacy training for the coaches. We're looking at bringing in LIPS and some other interventions to give them some more tools in their tool belt as we do reading interventions and the dyslexia screening. And finally, this is actually a change. We are sharing the final tiered focus monitoring report with Malden CPAC at their next meeting. However, I believe because there are parent teacher nights on the 23rd, that they will be pushing, CPAC will be pushing their meeting to the 30th, but stay tuned for more updates on that.
Thank you, Pam. Now we're going to hear from Tonyrtz, Assistant Superintendent, Finance and Operations.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope all is well. Our first slide, we're going to be talking about water fountains. I know it's been a question that's been asked by members of the community and parents and everybody else. The Board of Health has not approved the use of water fountains in schools. That's why they all remain closed. We do have a couple of water bottle filling stations that exist. I believe 2 exist at, or 4 exist at the Salem Wood, by the cafeteria and by the gymnasium, and at the high school as well. We have 4 water bottle filling stations that exist. The other schools don't have them, but we are working to get them for all the schools in due time. Therefore, in lieu of having water fountains that are working, we have cases of water being delivered to every school on a weekly basis. The after-school program, we are still struggling to get staff to work the after-school program. So at the BB, we only have 2 teachers right now, and therefore we are only limiting the number of students to 25. It's the same thing at Forestdale with only 2 staff members at Forestdale, at Salem Wood. Therefore, the limit of students is limited to 25 and 24. Ferryway is being done by the YWCA, and they're also struggling to have staff, but they do have enrollment slightly higher than our own internal, which they have about 35 to 40. And we do have Malden students who are getting transported to the YWCA, and that's at 35. I do have some good news to report on the Linden. We had several resumes come through today that we onboarded several. So we should be tentatively right now, we're looking at opening the Linden after school program on Monday, September 27, tentatively for about 25 students. And they will be based on the wait list on a first come, first serve that were on the wait list. So that is good news for Linden. But if there is anybody out there that wants to work at the after school program, we welcome you to apply. The problem is we've had absolutely no resumes come through on a lot of these openings, but we keep refreshing and hoping that somebody will apply. So that is the information on the after school programs. On our next steps, we're going to continuously clean buildings. Is continuing to happen in our schools. Again, the after school program, we're still in need of teachers. As soon as we have teachers, we can start enrolling more students. So we are desperate to have teachers apply or paras apply or anybody that wants a job after school. We're going through resumes and hopefully more people will be applying to the after school applications. And then we're also working on our entitlement grants. Those have been submitted. We have several special ed grants that will be submitted, and we're diligently working on ESSER 3 grant right now.
Thank you, Tony. Now we're going to hear from Jennifer Mckay. Jennifer, Jen, are you in the queue? Okay.
Oh, I actually don't see her on the panelist list. Let me see if she accidentally got.
So I will present for, that's okay. We can go ahead. I'm not Jennifer, but I will present. This is attached to the data that I presented at the beginning. We went and did a dive on ELs. Next time we present is going to be in special education. And we see the total enrollment of students. It is slightly lower. It was lower last year, and for the whole district and also for ELs. So you can see the pattern in there. Next, as of today, thank you for putting it in there. We have 943 students. All right, next, thank you. The graduation rates for our students, EL students, is really low. And we can see that it's only 65% in year 2017, 2018. Then we have students that are still in school, that were in school were 9 students in the year 2017, 2018. When you look at the graduation rate, it doesn't go higher than 67.9. So it is something we're going to start looking into. What is the pattern? What is happening in there? And also that they are the ones that are still in school. So we're going to be working with them closely to make sure that we are going to fulfill the needs that they have in terms of language acquisition and also academics. Next, please. This is the most alarming part for us. When we look at the dropout rate and we look at 10th graders, we also look at the ELs. And we notice that in 10th grade, we have the highest percentage of dropout for ELs. And we are going to start looking into what are the characteristics of the students, what is happening in 10th grade, not only for the general education as a whole, but also for ELs. And once again, next week, we're going to present the data for special education on dropouts. But it is alarming to us that we are losing a lot of students in 10th grade. And overall, the dropout of ELs is very high. And we can continue seeing that the year 2019, 2020, it was 18.9, 19% in 10th grade. So this is alarming to us. So we are already working on this to find out how we can start preventing the dropouts at any grade. Next, please. We still looking at our different languages. We still have 940 EL students, and this is the primary languages that are spoken in these schools. Next, please. This is our total enrollment of all students. It's 938 students, and you can see it by per grade level at the totals at the end. So I won't go so much into the detail, but if we see 10th graders in here, we want to make sure that we are going to capture their profile and start having conversations with them and the families, trying to see how we can support them, not just in the school, but also from home. And that would be across the board for all the students, but primarily for ELs, as the dropout is really extremely high in 10th grade. Next, please. I'm just going to let you read this one because that was the presentation, but this is about, we received the assessment results from WIDA, the access test. So we ask all the principals to send those reports to the homes, and this applies only to EL students. So parents would be receiving that information. And Jen has been working at the Parent Information Center, helping out assessing students. So thank you, Jen, if you're listening. Thank you for all your work. All right. I was just talking about that. Yes. And now we're going to listen hear from Victoria Mulkern, Director of Literacy and Title I. Thank you.
Good evening, all. So as Dr. Noriega Murphy explained with her flowchart of central office, this is my flowchart of the coaches deployment in the Title I department. As you can see, every K-8 school has at least one literacy and one math coach for a total of 11 coaches district-wide. Next slide, please. A few updates. On September 1st, my 2 family engagement coordinators and I had the privilege of attending all 5 kindergarten orientations and handing out books, pencils, and just extra materials to incoming students and families, and seeing the joy of our new Malden students. Additionally, this past Friday, myself, Jen Mckay, Director of EL Services, Greg Hurley, Director of Humanities, Natalia Brennan, Director of Instructional Technology, and Doug Dias, Director of STEM, we all held a joint coaches retreat at our central office location. All coaches across content areas were together all morning, and then we broke up into content-specific data analyzation groups in the afternoon. It was a true success, and it was lovely to have all the coaches with us. My coaches are getting through the DIBELS and iReady baseline testing this week. hopefully to start data meetings next week and the following week to get students into Tier 2 intervention groups by the end of the month. We have also implemented the maze subtest in the DIBELS this fall, which is a new subtest for these grades 2 through 8. And this will allow us to get a composite score for students in the DIBELS and another benchmark for comprehension. And we're working to more equitably allocate our Title I resources across all 5 schools once our district enrollment stabilizes. As I stated, we'll be starting to hold our data meetings across schools and grade levels. And starting tomorrow, we are going to hold our September family engagement events at all our schools. Forestdale is tomorrow. They will all be held outside at 8:15 a.m. So please join us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Now we're going to listen from Pari Tramondosi, our Director of Nursing.
Thank you. These are the lists of the school nurses that we have across the district. As you can see, we have pretty good coverage everywhere, and the nurses have been working really hard this year to get all the new students in and get their information from families to make sure they have a good, healthy, safe year going forward. Next slide. A few updates. The staff received an update by webinar from me on October 31st with all of the most recent DESE and DPH guidance. As you all are aware, we have been approved for the state funding for the COVID testing. Unfortunately, this has been delayed. This is statewide. It came about when they realized that they had so many people on board for the testing and they don't have enough staff to go across the state. So we have been working, or I have been working very closely with them to try to get that help to come on board. I know that people have been frustrated and parents are questioning when we're going to begin. And I don't have an exact date for that. I'm hoping that it's going to happen next week or even sooner if we can. But what we're planning to do is this week, we're going to get the parent letters out, which will give you information on the consent form. That consent form can be done online. We will send the consent form out in hopes to be prepared so that when we do get our program coordinators on board and the people that are going to come in and do the testings, that we will be all ready for that. This can also help us to iron out some problems that we might have with that registration. The registration is encouraged to be done online. We do have paper consents if needed. If you are unable to do the consent online, you can see your school nurse. She'll have that consent form for you. These consent forms are done in all languages as well. If you do the online registration, there is a capacity on there to change the translation too. New information that we have is the upcoming vaccination clinics that are going to be happening in our school. Cambridge Health Alliance is coordinating this. There is a flyer, which is the next slide, and I can show you that in a minute, which has been distributed throughout the city. I know that it's on our Malden website. It's also been on various social medias. It contains a QR code. You would scan on that QR code and be able to register for the vaccination. It's strongly encouraged for all eligible students to participate. It's also open for staff and any family members that would like to participate. The dates of the vaccination.
So I don't know what happened, but you are going to, I can go to the next slide, Adam. Thank you. Oh, that one. So vaccination is going to be available. And if it happens to be that you come and drop off the child or you come and pick up the student, you can also get your own vaccine for free. So we encourage the entire families to come and do it. There are different times and dates, different dates, no times. It's from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and you can see the dates. We are going to do it until October 5th, and then we are going to, again, send another flyer with different dates and times, but same locations our school. So we are trying to cover as much as we can with the vaccination in our schools. And once again, it's open for families too. Thank you. Now it's going to be our amazing Erin Craven, Director of School Counseling, Testing, and Academic Support.
Thank you, Superintendent Noriega. So I'll be brief. As you can see from this chart, the district has been working hard, in particular Assistant Superintendent Pam McDonald, to increase the number of social workers and maintain a number of school counselors throughout the district. We have increased in most of the buildings some of those numbers. And you can see just going down the list that we have a bunch. And the cryptic 7+2 is just to highlight the new RISE program that we have, a therapeutic program at the high school, has 2 social workers dedicated there. So numbers speak for themselves. But so you want to go to the next slide. We're working on a lot of different things. Some key updates and info for you today through the added generosity of the mayor's office. We're working to add the SAT school day on Wednesday, October 13th. Dr. Noriega and all of us agree it's very important that all the students have equitable access to college entrance exams. So that will be free for all students. And that will be a new addition this year. So we're excited about that. And as you can see under next steps, we're working to plan it because it's going to be a lot of moving pieces with that many students testing in the building. Our updates on well-being, social emotional support, as you can see, the addition of the counselors, working over the summer to speak with assistant principals and people in the schools, what curriculums are running, how they're running, what we want to do to, again, create equity around all the K-8s and their social emotional curriculums, as well as their supports in each building. So working towards that. On the career and academic front, we've expanded Naviance, which is a college and career support software platform, to the 7th and 8th grade. So working this year to expand a scope and sequence of lessons for all 7th and 8th graders around career awareness, academic planning, and social emotional well-being on that front as well. And as you've already heard, the dropout updates and data around that, the high school team in particular, and it will go into the 8th grade and 7th grade, looking at the transcripts of students who have left, why have they left, where are they, how do we get them back, into those details. And you've heard some of that, and we're going to continue that work throughout the year to get those numbers down. New information, we did submit an application to be an officially designated early college site from the Department of Ed. As most of you know, we have a very strong partnership with Bunker Hill in a very robust dual enrollment and early college program. However, it is not always, is not officially recognized by the Department of Ed. This is me actually going slow, so I'll go slower. We were granted an additional $10,000 in funding that we had carried from the spring. We had a $15,000 grant to assist students for financial aid and FAFSA work. So we received another $10,000 because we did a good job with that. We kept even with the state in terms of financial aid applications applied for and submitted throughout the students of Malden. And then we're working, as some of you have heard, with MassCore, the alignment of the curriculum K through 12, particularly our graduation requirements, keeping them in line with what is considered MassCore. And so that is hopeful that that will be for the class of 2026, but that requires, again, pieces of curriculum and departments to have different offerings that match. Again, it's a Department of Ed goal to have all schools MassCore compliant. And it revolves around world languages and arts and having the students have a very holistic diploma in their hands by 12th grade. So more on that over the course of the year. And then you'll hear more as we go through the year on our acceleration roadmap, again, following Desi's suggestion to work on accelerating coursework for all students who may be behind, who may be ahead, and what that looks like in all the schools, offering opportunities for students to accelerate their credit earning throughout the year. So those are sort of the things we're working on, as you can see under next steps. And I think that's it. I apologize for my speed. Again, that was me trying to go slow.
Thank you so much, Erin. And now we're going to hear from Charlie Comfrey from the Athletics, Health and Wellness Department.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, Superintendent, and school committee members for allowing me the opportunity to provide you with an update. I'll start with our Wellness Department updates. I'm happy to report that over the last 5 years, we've been able to add 9 new positions between adaptive physical education, health education, and physical education, raising that number to nearly 24 educators from pre-K through 12. Pre-K has adaptive physical education now, as well as a adaptive physical education K through 12 traveling. It was part of my 5-year plan when I came on in 2016 to make sure that every student K to 12 is afforded the opportunity to be exposed to physical education and health. And the district, since that time and to this date, has been nothing but supportive in that goal, and we are very close to reaching that goal. Moving on to athletics, we are in full swing at all of our fall athletic offerings, which I mentioned the last time, so I won't go through all the sports again. But to date, we have 337 registered student athletes ranging in grades from 9 through 12 participating in those fall sports. Also, in collaboration with the Malden Recreation Department, led by Mr. Joe Levine and Ms. Laura Perez, we're happy to report the first time since 2019, pre-COVID, we are bringing back our middle school sports, offering boys and girls cross country, baseball, softball, and intercity boys and girls basketball. And to date, nearly have 100 7th and 8th graders registered, and we will be starting Wednesday of this week. New information. Through early learning extended day funding, we were able to purchase this past spring integrated health technology smartwatches for the Ferryway School, which will be integrated into physical education, collecting data such as resting heart rate, working heart rate, intensity levels, steps, caloric expenditures, and intensity levels in order to show students specifically the importance of physical education and physical activity, with the hopes of adding the same program in our 4 other K through 8 schools. A very cool opportunity that came to me being a board member at the state level for the MIAA. Tom Brady's TB12 organization has graciously offered to train for free 12 of our student athletes at the high school once a month, starting in October, going through June, culminating in a dinner with Mr. Brady himself at their downtown location on Boylston Street. So we're very grateful for that opportunity. Next steps moving forward, we will be reviewing our existing wellness plan and plans to restructure and design according to CDC and district aligned structures and procedures. Thank you.
Okay.
And these slides are actually just the number of educators in each building, physical education, and every single building.
All right. Let's see, Mr. Waldo, stop share. Let's now open it up for questions. Questions of the members. Ms. Spatafor, and then we'll go to Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to all those that presented tonight. I really have to say I enjoy this format thoroughly. So please excuse me, I do have a few questions and I don't remember exactly who did what slide, so I'll try to be pretty brief. This one is to Ms. McDonald. In regards to the SE 24 parental consent, do we foresee, this is exactly why we're going with the front line.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because we talked about that in the last meeting and being able to sign off on IEPs. So
Yeah.
I'm saying that will streamline and reduce our numbers in missed or late parental consent forms, correct?
Yeah, and also our entire procedure around how we process IEPs, we're tweaking because it's just not efficient. And for instance, right now, the way it used to be is if you request an evaluation, the evaluation came to the student services office, and then we sent the consent out, and then it was sent back over to the school. And there was lots of moving parts. So we're really working with the team chairs to kind of have a much more streamlined process. Our team chairs are really amazing, but when it's going back and forth between many locations, things get lost in translation. And the frontline program is amazing. Once we have all of the data entered in correctly, it's going to be really amazing for us. And we've changed the procedures. So now the IEPs are going to be sent out 2 ways. We're still going to send them out paper because I think that some people like paper. And we're also going to send you'll get a link to the parent portal where you will be able to log on and see your child's IEP and click to sign it on that. And everyone, including our out-of-district kids, will have that.
Dynamite, thank you. One more quick question, Ms. Traman-Dozy, in regards to the vaccinations that we're going to be offering at the schools, just some clarification. Will those be handled inside of the school, outside? I was just curious because we're offering it not just to students, but also to families. So curious on how we handle people coming into our schools, just some background on how that's going to work.
Okay, I'm sorry that I lost my connection before. I thought I had myself plugged into an outlet and my computer died, and my apologies. I was going to get into just that question that you asked. So Cambridge Health Alliance is actually running this vaccination clinic. It really is like separate from the schools. We are having them come in and do this along with the Board of Health. Cambridge Health Alliance is the ones who made the flyer. Cambridge Health Alliance is sending their own people in to do this. There's separate areas in the school where this is going to be done, where this is set up. You're encouraged, or people are encouraged to use that QR code. If, however, people don't use the QR code and they come in on the day of the clinics, there will be people there to help them register right there. Even if it's a student who would like to get the vaccine, they'll reach out to the parents and get parental consent over the phone. So I think I answered that question for you.
Yeah, I was just more or less, I guess, a level of concern as we're in the midst of a pandemic, allowing people into the schools that aren't normally there. So with this being offered to families, are they gonna be buzzed into schools, going to a separate set area? Just looking more for the logistics on how that's gonna work.
So I'm not exactly positive where they're going to be set up to do the vaccine, but I do know that they'll probably encourage family members to do it at the end of the clinic. It's from 11 to 2, so I believe that they'll go beyond the time if need be. But they did want to open up to many people as possible. But maybe the superintendent may know exactly where they're setting it up, or the principals may know.
Yeah, so every principal actually has a designated space where they're going to be located, and we are hoping that it has an external door too, so for people to come in and out.
Wonderful, thank you for that. Two really quick questions, two more. One was for Ms. Craven in regards to school counselors and social workers. I see that we showed that by school, but we don't show the ELC. Is there a reason behind that? And if so, if not, do we have numbers?
No, yes, no reason. Sorry. There's no school counselor at the ELC. And to my knowledge, and Pam, please correct me if I'm wrong, there is one school social worker who has been there for a number of years for those students. So apologies.
There's a school social worker, and then we have another woman who works in a guidance type role. She's like a family liaison who's been there a long time, who does kind of the guidance role, but we don't really need guidance as much at the early learning center. So that role was tweaked a little, I think, before my time, but there is 2 people who work sort of in that social work guidance type role there.
All right, thank you. And my very last question, so I can let others go, is actually for my counterpart here, Mr. Iovino, who gave the data in regards to enrollment. And I was just curious, as we saw the enrollment at the ELC gradually build into a point where we could almost no longer have that many kids, and looking at the increased enrollment specifically at BB, is there any way that we can look at the capacity per school to add that next to enrollment number, so we know where we're starting to bust out of, the walls of individual schools?
If you don't mind, I can answer for him, if you don't mind. I would be glad to share tonight how we are tracking this actual enrollment of the schools to what is actually assigned to them, and then the attendance per day. So I would be more than glad to send it to you via email. Just ask you not to tamper with any number. I will just share with you without any editing, but I will send it to you right now.
That would be very helpful. Thank you. That's all from me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spatafor. Anybody else? Mr. Gray, and then Mr. Weldy.
Yes, just thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of topics. Ms. Spatafor touched on something I was going to ask concerning the vaccinations. Just want to clarify that it is open to all family members, correct? Yes, because we sort of glossed over that. I want to make sure people hear that. Another quirky question surrounding that. I'm assuming the vaccinations in schools are not open beyond family members. So we're not going to have it open for, say, anyone coming off the street requesting vaccines?
You are correct. We are actually limiting that to just families because we want to still keep our students safe. And the city of Malden is actually opening with flyers, places where other people can go and get vaccinated. But in this case, it would be only and only for people who are related to the students.
Thank you, Dr. Noriega. Another issue I want to talk about or ask about is, could we clarify the schedule for upgrades that we're talking about for the PIC enrollment system? Some of these new systems that are coming online, do we have like a general timeline for that?
We wanted to do it. Yes, go ahead. We wanted to do it yesterday, but Teresa.
3 months ago. No,
Yeah.
So I'm in the process now of working with multiple vendors. And identifying whether Aspen is a viable candidate, because they do have an enrollment portal. And since we already use Aspen, might make sense to just keep going. I met with another vendor today. I have a third vendor that's lined up because I want to make sure we're making the best choices for our families. So my target is that by December 1st, any enrollments that are happening for this school year, for 2021, 2022, that are coming in online are going to be in that portal. I'm hoping to over deliver and have that happen way earlier. However, with any of these, we have to get everything, the contracts approved, and then we have to actually work with the vendor to make sure that the workflow and the expectations of those documents meet the current city requirements. So there's a lot of back end work that we'll have to do once we do pick a vendor for that work, but it will absolutely be online by the time we are enrolling for the 2022-2023 school year. So our ELC families will have a very streamlined and short enrollment process for kindergarten, and the other families will have the typical enrollment process that we do have, but they will have access. So we need to get everybody trained and make sure that all of our family liaisons at schools have access as well, because we want to make sure we have a nice smooth rollout. Once I have a vendor, I'm going to present to you a very specific plan on how we're going to roll out.
Oh, that sounds great. That's excellent. Just one last thing. I hope it's not imposing, but for the current applications in the queue, I think you mentioned we'll probably have most, if not all of those processed within the next day or two. I just need clarification on that, because at some point I've got to turn around and, answer questions about this myself.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 57 as of noon. Today, we had 57 applications. So it's a slowing down of getting in new applications right now, which has allowed us to really catch up. We are getting a lot of additional documents every day, every minute. The email is always going. So my expectation from the Welcome Center is that as soon as we get these new ones in, we start going back and recontacting families that have already been contacted to say, hey, we're still waiting for these documents. How can we help? And then also looking at, we had a new family liaison start last week, the part-timer. We have another part-timer starting next week. So we're going to really focus on those. Right now, we have 276 applications that don't have sufficient information to register. So there's the piece that's easy when everybody comes with all of the materials, but then now we're in the process of contacting and recontacting, particularly in the home language, to make sure that we can make sure we get all of the information and documentation that we need for families as soon as possible. There's some policy shifts I'm going to recommend as we move forward that I'm noticing are barriers for our caregivers, but that's going to be a later time and date for the 2022-2023 school year, as I continue to learn about what sort of structural barriers are in place for our caregivers beyond the actual enrollment process.
Got it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Weldock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few comments and then a question. I do want to echo what Ms. Spatafora said at the outset, which is this format is fantastic. And as one member, I really, truly appreciate the way in which you have structured this, Superintendent, because it makes it a lot easier for us and it makes it a lot easier for, I think, the public at home. My first two comments are around your expectations, which I think really should be called out and applauded. One is, we're not used to, I think, hearing in very clear and plain terms what a superintendent's instructional expectations are. And I think particularly for parents and for people at home, seeing that in a transparent way, even though for educators, we hear these words and we're like, yep, we know. But I think hearing it on a regular basis from a superintendent for the community is a pretty strong thing. Additionally, I just want to really give you kudos and just say thank you. I think for being so clear and explicit with your anti-racist practices. It's obvious that you're centering equity in your work, but what I appreciated, I think, about what you said was that it very clearly responds to a need that you heard from the community. It very clearly articulates the values that we have come to know that you have. And it's not aspirational, right? The things that you put in that bullet note list are not aspirational. They're attainable, and there are ways in which we as educators can improve, because we all, I think, can improve. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. I just wanted to say congratulations to Diane Brooks, the new Director of Fine Arts and World Languages. I think somewhere out there, Nancy Kasabian is cheering and her heart is full. It's nice to see a Director of Fine Arts and World Languages again in this district, especially someone who was promoted from within, which is great. In terms of the diversity, equity, engagement piece, I just wanted to say I'm really looking forward to seeing how the district develops the work around the Zaretta Hammond text. I know I think, Larissa, you had done some of this in your school too. We in my building bought that as an anchor text for all of our staff members. And when things that tend to start with a groan, like, oh, another thing, it really became sort of a conduit to thinking and finding tangible connections between social emotional learning and culturally responsive education, finding tangible connections between, how to make curriculum more representative of the students that are learning. And I think that that'll be really exciting. I want to say thank you to all who were involved, from the Parent Information Center down to the administrative team, because when I look at the distribution of English language learners, I see very clearly the equity work that we started and sort of had to hit pause. We had to hit pause on a lot of the equity work that we were doing prior to the pandemic. And when I look at the enrollment trends, particularly at all of the schools besides Salemwood, you see a more equitable enrollment of ELL students starting in kindergarten and first grade. And so it's good to see that the programmatic side of things is being built up in a way that just because of a program and just because of something that you identify, that you don't have to go to a specific building. That all of our buildings are being treated in that particular equitable way. And that was really exciting to see, particularly when I looked at the trend of ELs across the district. The only other comments, and I know the chair will probably mention this as well, is just a kudos to Director Craven for all the work that she's doing, particularly around SAT Day and the addition of SEL staff around the district. We know that's a value that we as a committee have explicitly stated, and we know that you as a district leadership team share those values. My only question, Mr. Chair, is around the online registration for the pool testing. I'm actually wondering, so is the information for families going home before the end of this week, and will they have the opportunity to enroll in that? Like, are they going to get the same notification electronically that they're getting via paper, and will that be able to be done this week, or should we be expecting more like it's a next week thing?
Okay. Yes. So the letter that's actually going home to families explains the whole process and what each step is. I think I explained this before when we had a parent webinar. It's 3 different steps. There's 1 step for the Binax testing, which can be done in the nurse's office for symptomatic students. Then there's the test and stay option for anybody that's been identified as a close contact. And then there's the pool testing option. So 1 consent covers all 3. When we send this home, this is an ongoing enrollment. You can enroll your child at any time, but what we'd like to do is try to get as many people as we can up front before our coordinators come on board so that we can just start the process right away. But this is something that you can enroll as the year goes on.
Thank you. And honestly, I really just want to say thank you, Patty, for the work that you're doing. I know that you're hearing a lot from us. You're hearing a lot from parents in the community. I know that I, as one member, I'm sure the rest share this as well, between Tony fielding the questions about water bottles and after school, we really appreciate the amount of time you've taken to hear our concerns so that we can relay those back to the community members that reach out to us. So it's not unnoticed, and it's truly appreciated.
I appreciate that, Adam.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? Just a question from the chair, the superintendent. For me, it's all about the dropouts. So I would like that to be an item that remains standing with the school committee each month until we have some sense of what exactly is going on. And the question I would have, once we make contact, is why? I am very interested in knowing what happened, why it happened, etc. So I also wanted to ask you if you could get me what the statewide average percent is.
I would be glad that
because I'm curious as to just where we stand. Please, there is no percentage, that's good, but I'm very curious as to how we compare to the statewide average. And I would also like to know from you exactly what is the definition of a dropout? Is it someone that may have gone to another district that we just haven't caught up to? Or is it actually someone telling us that they are no longer attending school? So if you could, for the school committee next month, just a little bit of a deeper dive into where we are and where we're going relative to that topic.
Absolutely, it would be a pleasure. Yes.
And for Mr. Conifer, you mentioned there were 337 student athletes from grades 9 through 12. How does that compare to last year?
Mr. Mayor, that's a good point. I tried to limit my talking as much as possible, but we are up significantly here at the high school. Typically, we hover around, anywhere from 250 to 275. I will attribute the spike to our new football coach. He's rallied the troops, especially the freshmen. There's a very large, enthusiastic group of freshmen here at Malden High School, and we can't wait to see what they do over the next 4 years.
Okay, very good. And over to you, Ms. Tremendozzi. You mentioned that we will have a clinic upcoming. My understanding is that there would be a clinic each week after that clinic. Is that true?
Yeah, so that first clinic would be the initial vaccine, and then they would repeat the same days following in a month. They would come back, but that information will probably be given the day that they sign up for the vaccine.
And the clinics will be rotated throughout the district.
Yes, that's what's on the that slide that was on the presentation, said all the different dates and all the different schools.
Okay. And just for members that may be watching, we will be doing another show tomorrow night, updating where Malden is in general with COVID. So that will be at 6 p.m. Tuesday, September 14th, which you can watch via Malden's YouTube channel or live on UMA. And that will be from 6 to 7 p.m. All right, thank you. We are now going to move on. So let's go to the agenda. We just went through the superintendent's report. I don't see anything under subcommittee reports, motions, resolutions. We do have executive session. So there are 3 items under executive session. First is the approval of the executive session minutes of August 30th, 2021. We also want to come together to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with units A, B, and C, because an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position. To conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with SEIU Local 888 Clerical Unit, because that too, being an open meeting, will have a detrimental effect on our bargaining position. So is there a motion to go into executive session for those reasons? Motion by Mr. Iavino, seconded by Mr. Froyo. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Drummy,
Yes.
Mr. Froyo, Mr. Froyo,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Iavino,
Yes.
Ms. Luong,
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Spellepora,
Yes.
Mr. Waldeck,
Yes.
Mayor Christensen.
Yes. We will now go into executive session. Mr. Waldeck, I don't think it needs to be said, right? There's a separate link.
There's a separate link for the folks for Rosetta Languages. This is where we part ways. Thank you for your services tonight as well.
All right, let's leave this and go into executive session.
All right. Larissa, I just looked over to my left and I found my book. All right, see you all on the other side.
Leah, you don't need us, right? So we are signing off.
I see we have two Shirleys tonight.
Yep, we're sisters. Oh my goodness.
4, 5, 6, 7. We're waiting on John and Jen. Adam, you heard from them or?
Jen, yes, hang tight. Here's John.
John too.
All right, we have John.
Lenny.
No, Ben's here. We're just waiting on Jen.
Well, Jen says link's expired. I'm just going to send her another one.
Have her go to the first one that Shirley sent. It'll connect you through. That happened to me.
Shirley, I love your background. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
I like it.
All right, let's see. We have Jen, we have Len, John. Okay. All right, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
By Mr. Drummond, seconded by Mr. Iavino. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed?
Aye, aye, aye.
The ayes have it. School committee is hereby adjourned. Bye, everybody.
Good night, folks.
Night.
Yeah.
Go. Take care.
Have a good night.
So long.
Night.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Ellen.